Welcome class to the Project 1 lecture. This one's a little bit different. We're going to go over pretty much the start to finish on how to build this complete game project. We're going to start it off by hitting New Project, and we're going to switch to 6.0 because that is the version that we're using for this class. And then we're just going to put in MD for Marble Drop. I'm going to ensure that I have Universal 3D selected, and then I'm going to hit Create Project. Now, Unity is going to go ahead and create all the initial project files, and it's going to take a little while, so we'll be back when we're done with it. Alrighty, so now that we have the project fully open here, we are going to go ahead and bring in the assets. So we can open up our project window here. We have these assets. They're in the downloadable resources for this lecture. We're going to drag and drop. And you'll see a bunch of different assets in here. It's a couple of scripts, a couple of PNGs, and an FBX. We're going to go ahead and import. Take a couple seconds. Alrighty, so now we have all these different assets in here. Let's expand this, see what it is. So the case back is actually our entire, all the 3D models that we need. And then we have this color palette and emission for our material. And then we have a bunch of scripts that are just going to pretty much handle all the functionality for our game. So we can take our case back and we can just drag and drop it. It's a prefab. And we're going to, let's see, where are we at here? Case back, reset, alrighty. So we have the case fully reset. This is where we wanted it in the game. So what are we going to do first? First, I'm going to take the main camera, and I'm going to kind of fly around until I kind of get to where most of the bottom is covered. We want to see a little bit of the top here, and then we're just going to right-click the main camera, and we're going to hit Align with View. The main camera is going to be the entire camera for our game, so if you switch over to game mode, you can actually see it. And we want to have a good eyesight of this entire board here. So we've aligned it to our view so it can see it. And now we're going to jump into these prefabs here. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to right-click prefab, and we're going to click Unpack Completely. We want to adjust and we want to make changes to this. And we can't do that when it's still under this case back. So first thing we do, we have the marble text. That's fine. But if you notice, things don't look super great. There's no glowing going on here, and that's kind of what I want to, the effect I want to bring out. So we're going to right-click, and I'm going to create a material. And this is going to be called Marble Drop BG. And for our base map, we're going to drag and drop this color palette into the base map. And we're going to come down to this emission section. We're going to click emission. And we're going to drag and drop this MD emissive under the emissive map. And now that we have this emissive material, we're going to click the HDR button, and a little color wheel will pop up. And you want to select a color that you want. So I'm going to select a pink color, and we're going to choose about 2.5 is fine. Let's see where that is. We can select our objects, and we can just start dragging them on. Don't worry about the blue. It's just the shaders coming into effect. It should only take about a second, and then you'll be good. Stud and the walls. So now we have this nice bright glowing effect going on here. I was going to adjust from 2.4, I think is what it was, to something else, but I think that's fine. Don't need to adjust any further. So let's start building our game. So we have our paddle here, and let's build the paddle first. We're going to click, and we're going to bring it to the top here. We want it to be its own separate game object. And how I'm going to manipulate this paddle is the paddle's just going to go left and right, and marbles are going to drop through the top here, and they're going to bounce off these little studs. And you have to collect them by using the paddles. So I'm going to actually move my paddle down a little bit, and then I'm going to, let's see, I think I create the, well, let's add the components to it. So we need the paddle controller, and that's going to be able to control how fast the paddle moves left and right. And then we also need a rigid body. So let's create a rigid body here. And we don't want to use gravity. We don't want the paddle to fall. But we do want the paddle to kind of move back and forth. So we are going to add some constraint. We don't want it to rotate at all. And we don't want it to go up and down. And that is all that section needs, but we need to add some collision to the paddle. Right now we don't have any collision. We're going to have to go back and add collision to all these objects. But let's add some collision. And we can't add it like we're going to do with the other ones because this object is moving. If you try to use a mesh collider with a moving object, it just doesn't work. So instead, we're going to create a 3D cube. And we're going to just drag it up to where our paddle is. I'm adjusting by using these keys here. I'm just using the hotkeys. Q, W, E, R, and T, and Y will actually change these buttons here. It's best if you know the hotkeys because you will use them quite a bit. But that's all right. So we're going to just kind of make our cube to be kind of the size here that we're looking for. And then we're going to actually remove the mesh render. We keep the collider, remove the mesh render, and we'll rename it to collider. And we're doing this because you can't use the, I can't remember what it's called, something 2D. There's a complex mesh 2D something or another. But you can use it for those, but we're just going to use some box colliders. And you can't use it that combined mesh collider in 3D, is what I meant to say. So we got a nice little, select the parent object. Now you can kind of see we have this collider for a paddle built. We're going to need one more 3D cube, and we could probably just take this collider and duplicate it. Same thing, it doesn't need any visuals. We are going to stretch it out a little bit so that it can hit everything else that enters the paddle. And we don't want it poking through the ground because this is actually our paddle marble grabber. And the purpose of the paddle marble grabber is when a marble falls down and lands inside the paddle, we need to get rid of it and add a score. So that's what this paddle marble grabber is doing. And just like the name suggests, all you need to do is add the component, the paddle marble grabber script. And you're going to need a score system. So let's create that real quick. Right click, we're going to create a UI Text Mesh Pro. And you might get this TMP importer pop-up. You can just hit import the essentials. Should take, I don't know, maybe 10 seconds or so. And you can close it. So we want to modify this, but let's first select the canvas, and let's go into 2D mode so we can modify this. And we're going to press F, which will focus on the canvas. And that will allow us to modify the UI. If we do not recall from the canvas section, you have to take all of your UI components and put them inside this canvas square for them to be able to appear within your game world. So what we're going to do first, we're going to take this canvas, we're going to modify the UI scale mode to scale with screen size. This way we can actually put a predetermined UI resolution into our canvas so it doesn't do dramatic changes depending on the system. So I'm going to change it to 1080 by 1080. So the default setup will always be 1080 by 1080. And then I'm going to take this text object and I'm going to put it in the bottom middle-ish area. And it's just going to say score and have that little colon. And we'll name this score text. And I'm going to duplicate it and add a child. And we're going to rename this one to, oh, sorry, this is going to be score text. The top one is going to be score label because it is not a text. We're not using it as a text field. We're only using it to label something. And I'm going to modify it, and I'm just going to put a 0 in it. Make it a little bit bigger than it should be. And that's, let me come here, and we're just going to put score system. And this script, the score system script, all it does is manage this number on the screen for the player, and it manages the player's score. But it is a requirement for this paddle marble grabber because it needs access to the score system to be able to add score whenever a marble enters the marble grabber. So moving on, while we're here in this 2D mode, we're just going to go ahead and create the game over screen. And the game over screen is a game object that we're going to hide and display only when we want to see it. So when the game is over, essentially. So we're going to center it into the screen. And I'm going to rename it to game over screen. And for the background, I'm going to just bring it down to kind of like a dark gray. I'm going to add some text to it. This is going to be the title. And I'm going to add middle centered and then just say game over. And on the game over screen, we're going to have two buttons. And these buttons are going to be used for restarting the game as well as exiting the game. And we can just kind of move them wherever we would like them to be. And we're going to modify the text to say restart and exit. To modify the text, you just modify the Text Mesh Pro UI component that is a child of the actual button. So on the game over screen, we also need to do add component game over screen. And what this does is it just houses all of the scripts that are needed for these buttons. So we come into our restart button, we scroll all the way down to the button component, and in the on-click functionality, we can just hit the plus sign and drag over our game over screen because it has that script, the game over screen script, and that is the script we want to access. So we're going to click on our no function, we're going to open to game over screen because that's the script, and we're going to click restart game because that's the script that we want to run whenever the player presses this restart button. And we're going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to drag over the game over screen, except for this one it's going to say exit game. And we can actually hide this game over screen. We don't need to have it appear. So coming back to the paddle, we're going to go back into the 3D mode, focus back down in the paddle. The paddle is complete. So we're going to move on to these other environments. We forgot to add all the nice little colliders. For the text, we don't need a collider. For the back, we're going to select a mesh collider. Nope, not a mesh filter. Mesh collider. And that'll just give us all our little collision, especially with these cutouts. Case front, we can actually use a box collider. We don't want anything to exit this front area, and we're going to create some glass for it as well. But for the studs can use a capsule collider. Now you may notice that this capsule collider looks really weird, really wonky. But it's because we're not set up in the right orientation. If we increase the height, it goes out to the side. We can actually change it to X. Then we can modify the radius and the height. And then while we're here, we might as well duplicate the stud. And just add some more. And this is for the marbles to kind of like bounce off of. If you've ever seen pachinko, it's the same style. It's just marbles bounce off and you just got to try and collect them. I did not want that one up there. That's alright. Alrighty. So now we have our studs set up. The walls, I think, are the last one. These are going to be a mesh collider as well. These objects that are mesh colliders, the walls and the back, we're going to set them both to static, just because they do have a mesh collider on them. We don't want anything crazy to go on at all with them. The rigid body. Now, let's see. We need the what is it? The backdrop. Let's create the backdrop. 3D object. Quad. The background, I don't really like staring into nothingness, so we're going to reset this quad, and we're going to bring it behind it, and then we're going to rotate it 180 degrees, and then we're just going to make it very, very large, so we have kind of a gray background. Nice little background. For the case, we said we were going to create that glass pane, so let's go ahead and create a 3D cube. And let's bring it up. Let's zoom into it. Press F. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring it onto this edge. And this is a super, super easy way to create glass in Unity. And we're going to scale it up. And I want it to cover this top portion in here as well. I think that's good. All right, now we have to create the glass material. And for this one, we're going to change the surface type from opaque to transparent. It should take a second. That's fine. And now that it is applied, let's go ahead and drag and drop that glass piece on there. It should take a second. And all we're going to do is modify the alpha to give it that glass look. And if you'd like, you can also mess with the metallic map. I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave it like that. So under the glass, we also need that timer up here. So I'm going to create a 3D object text mesh pro. I'm going to name this one timer. And I'm going to bring this up and forward so that we can see it inside of this little square. And then we're going to rotate it 180 degrees, and let's kind of mess with the scaling so we can get it inside here. And I'm just going to put a timer in here, that way I can kind of see where I'm at, and then I can adjust it. Make the text a little bit bigger. And let's make the text red. So we come into the game mode, we pretty much can see most of the game. The timer needed something, I believe. Double check the timer is good. Game manager, we do need the game manager still. And the marble consumer, alright. 3D object cube, we're going to create the marble consumer. This is for whenever a marble doesn't make it into the paddle. We still need to get rid of it somehow. We can't have them build up in the machine. So we create this invisible object down here, this marble consumer. And the point of this object is whenever a marble enters it, it just destroys that marble. So we're going to remove the mesh renderer, and we're going to change the box collider to trigger. Marble consumer, and that's all we had to do for that. And then I think the last thing is the game manager, and this is just used for managing the game. It shows the game over screen whenever we 2 minutes are up, and also keeps the timer in check. So we're going to drag and drop our timer into the timer text, and our restart screen is going to be our game over screen. And I think that's everything. Let's give it a play and let's see. Oh, you know what we didn't do? We didn't create any marbles. I think that's the last thing we need to do. All right. So for the marbles, where's the... Oh, we didn't even create the marble spotter. Shoot. All right. So we create a cube, and we're going to come over and come to the top. Focusing in on the cube. We want it to be in this slot up here. And then all we need to do is just scale it however wide we want it. And what this marble spawner will do is we can remove the box collider. I don't believe we need that. Marble spawner. We do not need it. So this script, all it does is take in game objects, and then according to this spawn rate, every 1 second is what this is set up by default. Every 1 second it'll randomly select one of these marbles, and then it randomly picks a point within the confines of this gray box, and then just drops it down. So this will actually be the marble spawner. And we don't have a marble, so let's go ahead and create a sphere. We name this one marble, and we're going to create this as a prefab. So drag and drop, and then we're just going to delete the one in the scene. And we're going to double click on this marble to kind of go in and edit it. And the first thing we're going to do is reset the transform position so that it'll always spawn exactly where we want it. We want to leave all of this right, but we want to create our own custom tag. So we're using tags to identify what is marbles and what are not marbles. So that way any object that enters the marble consumer or anything like that, it only destroys marbles. It doesn't destroy the walls or anything like that. It may also see entering it at the start of the game. Essentially, it only destroys marbles. And I'm going to duplicate this glass because I want a marble texture. And I'm going to change it to this blue. I think could be good for a marble. And in the marble spawner, we are just going to drag and drop that marble. Oh, that's the material that I'm selecting on. Leave that in there for you. All right, there's the drag and drop that marble in there. That should be everything. All right, we can move back and forth. The marbles are spawning, but where are they? Ah, it wasn't the only thing. All right. Rigid body. We need to add a rigid body so that we can add gravity. Then I think that should be it. There we are. We can faintly see them. Oh, one last thing. Shoot. These are the many different things that will happen in game development. So immediately I noticed that when a marble dropped down that it didn't get consumed. It just kind of bounced around on here. That's because I have not set the marble grabber to a trigger. Let's make sure the marble consumer is a trigger. The marble spawner should have nothing on it. And that's it. That's your first game that you've ever made in Unity. It's pretty basic, but it's designed not to jump right into the code. We're moving game objects around. We're doing prefabs. We're adding components, things like that. And it is a fully functional game. This will go on for until the timer runs out, and then you just display the score, and you and whoever you're playing against, you just take turns playing it and see who can get the highest. Congratulations if this is your first Unity project that you've ever created. And I look forward to seeing you in further lectures. If you're not part of the Introduction to Game Development course, this project is actually being taught over in that course on Udemy, as well as how to use Unity, how to build projects, etc. Create the executables that get played on consoles and web browsers and whatnot. And that course covers all of that. But if you're into that, I'll see you in that one. Take care.